In the past week, the left's entire narrative surrounding grooming gangs has been completely blown out of the water, and I just wanted to show you some of the things that they would be saying about grooming gangs that turned out not to be true by the data that was available when, for example, this Home Office report was published in December of 2020. This was done by the Home Office, and the Home Office is quite a diverse institution, and I think it's on page 7, if I can get to it, that they tell us that the issue is not about ethnicity or religion, and they say that this is something that just happens everywhere. Notice that they say, well, look, it was before 2010, the evidence was a bit, and the evidence is ropey anyway. Sorry, no, here it is on page 8, right? And it is this one particular line that has been taken out of context, and we'll see it in a second. They say in this, a number of high-profile cases, including offending in Rotherham, investigated by Professor Alexis J. the Rochdale Group, convicted as a result of Operation Span, and convictions in Telford, have mainly involved men of Pakistani ethnicity. Beyond specific high-profile cases, the academic literature highlights significant limitations about what can be said about links between ethnicity and this form of offending, and that's because of the paucity of the data. And this is the line. Researchers found that group-based child sexual exploitation offenders are most commonly white. And so this was taken with and run with. As you can see, this is from the University College London. One of their analyses. A new Home Office report admits that grooming gangs are not a Muslim problem, even though this study later on goes on to say, well, the data's really incomplete, so actually we can't really make any assertions, but we are going to make this assertion. And from this assertion, you can see that they've extrapolated this in order to completely quash what I suppose is the right-wing narrative on the grooming gangs. Even though, I mean, when I say the right-wing narrative, I mean the reality of it, the narrative that reflects reality. The study finds no credible evidence for a far-right stereotype that has spread widely in the media, writes Dr. Ella Cobain and various others. Now, she has spent many years now absolutely defending to the hilt the Muslim Pakistani community from these allegations of grooming. And it's got to the point now where literally the dam just can't be held back anymore. She's straining to hold it in, but it just won't. But look at the things that they were saying just a few years ago. This week marks a watershed moment in a decade of discussion over grooming gangs, because this much-anticipated Home Office report has concluded that there is no credible evidence that any one ethnic group is overrepresented in cases of child exploitation. Now, this study doesn't say that, actually, right? What it does say is that it's hard to say from the data because it's so incomplete, but they do admit mainly involved men of Pakistani ethnicity. And so this kind of lie was just the overarching number that was just like, oh, for the entirety of the UK, that is still like 75% white, well, most of them are white. And it's like, yes, but that's not the question, is it? The question is, in this narrow band of particular kind of child sexual exploitation, are there any types of communities that are specifically overrepresented? And the answer was, of course, yes. For many in Britain today, the term grooming gang immediately suggests Pakistani heritage Muslim men abusing white girls. Well, that's only because they've seen the convictions, right? When you see the templates, the tableaus of those men who are convicted, and you read the names, it's almost entirely just one community, one kind of man, one kind of religion, and the names that represent that, reflect that. It's not a surprise that people formed a stereotype based on this. But look at this. Researchers found that group-based offenders are most commonly white. That particular line has been lifted. That one line has been lifted to say, no, actually, this is not a Muslim problem. This is not a Pakistani community problem. Actually, it's the white people in Britain who are most commonly running these grooming gangs where they groom and rape young girls. It's like, look, that's just not true. But look at how excited they are to be able to say this. A powerful modern racial myth has been exploded. You liars. You absolute liars. Right? What started as a far-right trope had migrated into the mainstream, meeting little resistance along the way. And that's because whenever it was like, okay, well, who's been convicted of this today? Oh, it's Telford. Oh, it's Oxford. Oh, it's Rotherham. Oh, it's Rochdale. Oh, it's Newcastle. Oh, it's wherever. You blah, blah, blah. Pick a town, right? The Times and its chief investigative reporter, Andrew Norfolk, claimed to have uncovered a new ethnic crime threat, shrouded until then in a supposed conspiracy of silence. So Andrew Norfolk is just a racist. He just made this up. It's totally fictional. The racial stereotype gained credence when the Quilliam Foundation, a controversial counter-extremism group, claimed that 84% of grooming gang offenders were Asian. So what they did is just went through the convictions, and they were like, Pakistani Muslim, Pakistani Muslim, Pakistani Muslims, Sikh Muslim, Pakistani Muslim, or a Sikh or whatever you can call them. But so then carries on. The grooming gang narrative fed into the agenda of the far right, but it was not there. The issue was radicalised. The Labour MP Sarah Champion wrote one notorious article in 2017 where she said, look, they are Muslim Pakistani grooming gangs. They are acting in a kind of ethnically homogenous way. They are targeting vulnerable English girls because they are white, because they are other, and they're being covered up by the establishment. And this could have resulted in 1 million victims across the country. And yet here they are going, nope, see, there was nothing to it. I mean, she's the MP for Rotherham, right? So you think she would know something about this? The 2-year study by the Home Office makes it clear that there are no grounds for asserting that the Muslim or Pakistani heritage men are disproportionately engaged in such crimes. That's just so not true. That's not true by their own thing, by their own words. This is just such a lie, a bold-faced lie from the University College London. And so this whole thing, I mean, it just gets worse, right? The claims that grooming gangs were not properly investigated due to political correctness and a fear of being accused of racism are heavily undermined by decades of research, highlighting the consistent over-policing of minority communities. You fucking liars! You absolute liars, right? Over-policing of communities, having police that turn a blind eye, and we have lots and lots of evidence, lots of examples, lots of reports of police literally turning a blind eye to all of this when they're not actually covering up or being directly involved, or when they've literally arrested the fathers who have gone to the houses to try and rescue their teenage daughters from being drugged, given alcohol, and raped, right? By adult Muslim men. There was one case that always stands out in my mind, where this 12-year-old is in a house full of like 20-something Muslim men, and she's drunk, and they're like, oh, well, we're going to arrest her. It's like, sorry, you're going to arrest her? You're going to arrest her for having done something wrong. But these guys, they're not in trouble for anything, right? That's wild, absolutely crazy. And so anyway, you can see just the level of deceit that went into the shitlib attempt to try and cover this up. They were not going to have this. They did not want this. They wanted to say, nope, every community is exactly the same. The Muslim community holds British values. Therefore, they treat outsider girls who are vulnerable in exactly the same way that every other community does. And in fact, it's the white people who are the bad people here. So don't you forget that. And this whole thing, I mean, like, look at the categoric. It wasn't political correctness. This is a racial stereotype that's been exploded. It's a myth. Most of it's white. Well, that's just not true. And the good thing about the Baroness Casey report is that they directly address this. Now, Baroness Casey is a left-winger herself. She's part of the Labour Party. She's not someone who's outside of their institutions. It's just what's changed in the 5 years since this was produced to when this was produced. Well, the political environment changed, right? This was produced when they thought they had a handle on the narrative, when they thought they had a handle on the politics. The Conservative Party were never going to do anything, right? They were going to be like, well, that's it. That's us completely cucked. So I guess there's nothing we can do about this or say about this. And then the Reform Party came along, and even then, blah, 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 big mouth, but no action. It took Rupert Lowe saying, right, I'm going to raise more than £600,000 and do a private inquiry into this that got them off their asses, and Elon Musk tweeting going, look, listen, you rape genocide apologists, get a handle on it, to get this actually done. And so Baroness Casey, right, we're just going to read what she's written. The 2020 Home Office paper, Group-Based Child Sexual Exploitation, Characteristics of Offending, which we've just looked at, which we discussed, reached the conclusion that, quote, it seems most likely that the ethnicity of group-based CSE offenders is in line with CSA more generally, as in child sexual assault, more generally and with the general population, with the majority of offenders being white. It is quoted and requoted in official reports, the media and elsewhere as proof that claims made about Asian grooming gangs are sensationalized or untrue, though this audit, and this is the important part, found it hard to understand how the Home Office paper reached that conclusion, which does not seem to be evidenced in research or data. It is not true. It is not true. Media reporting at the time the Home Office paper was published includes headlines like, most child sexual abuse gangs made up of white men, and the report continues to be referred to in the media as proof that the claim has been debunked. However, this is not true, as Baroness Casey has told. She's come out and gone, look, and she's told us why. If you lie repeatedly about what people can see with the evidence of their own eyes is not the case, then that plays into the hands of the far right, as if the young girls being abused actually don't matter, or the racism being expressed by these gangs doesn't matter. None of that matters. What matters is the far right might be able to make some political headway out of this, and therefore, oh, look at that. Sorry, guys, hands up. We're going to have to tell the truth. But on the plus side, at least, whenever this comes up, and if they ever bring up this absolute BS report, you can point them to the Baroness Casey report on page 126 and say, that report is false, you are a liar, and you're still lying, and I know you're lying, and you've been caught.